Hey everyone, this is Jane with Herbal, and in this video, I'm going to cover the amazing rainforest plant that is cat's claw. Now, this is also known as unadagato or Uncaria tomentosa, which is a beautiful, beautiful name. It's so fun to learn about this plant, and this has been used and loved by human beings and documented for more than 2,000 years. So this is not something new. This is something amazing to learn about because of all the health benefits. And it's got this beautiful, deep, rich history of how special this plant was to the people natively where it grows. So it's native to the upper Amazon basin in Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Bolivia, and into parts of Central America. So there is some really beautiful, rich history that I'm excited to share with you. At the top of this, let me just say that the information I share with you is not meant to be medical advice. This is just meant to entertain and educate you. As always, do your own due diligence when it comes to using plants, plant medicine, incorporating them into your daily life and your supplement routine, adding them as a tea or a tincture or even as capsule products. Especially if you're on prescription medications, this is really important to get with a functional medicine doctor, check in with your normal healthcare practitioner if they're knowledgeable on herbs and medications, and just make sure that you use your best common sense, do your best due diligence, and know that the information I share is based on my own experience and my own research. So that being said, there are some really magical properties and really cool things that I'm excited to share with you in today's video. So I did do a video on cat's claw a little more than a year ago, but I wanted to update the information and just add to it because I feel like where we are this last quarter of 2025, the world is shifting super fast. And I believe that having the knowledge to take care of ourselves using herbs and herbal remedies and natural things that Mother Earth puts on this planet for us to utilize is extremely important in the times that we have ahead of us. It's not anything to be afraid of or scared of. It's something to prepare for and to empower yourself with. So this is the place we find ourselves, and I'm excited to walk through this with you, my fellow human, as the world unfolds and the things that are happening come to fruition. The world is becoming a better place if you look at it that way. And this is where personal empowerment, personal responsibility, this is where this is dialed into the highest level. So this is a beautiful time to be here and learning about plant medicine on this level. So I found some really interesting things about cat's claw that I really wasn't extremely familiar with. So I'm going to share some health benefits with you, but this is some cool traditional things that the shamans, the indigenous people where this grows, these are different things that they've been using cat's claw for, because people go into a relationship with plants. It's not just picking up a bottle of supplements off of a shelf. There is something magical and something that connects us to the plants that Mother Nature grows. Originally, cat's claw was used as a purifier and a blood cleanser, okay? Cat's claw was decocted into a dark, bitter tea to wash the blood, is how they would describe that in some of the old texts, meaning to detoxify, clear the fevers, or cleanse after illness or childbirth. And this is something I know my dad utilized cat's claw for when my mom gave birth to probably the last half of her children. So my mom had 11 babies, and there's 3 more that were adopted. But this is something that there's deep experience in my family with this beautiful, beautiful plant. In this worldview, where this is a blood cleanser, they looked at what they call dirty blood as it was a cause of swelling, skin problems, and internal imbalance. So if you look at something that's a blood purifier, a blood cleanser, you're going to detoxification mode where you cleanse the blood. So if you look at dirty blood, it just simply means your blood needs to be cleansed. And this is something that cat's claw has a deep, rich history of being known to help purify the blood. So here's what it says. A decoction of the inner bark would be boiled for hours, reduced and drank in small portions over several days, which they looked at this as a ritual cleansing. This is just something that they would do ritualistically, or if you look at it in modern times, there's things that we do to detoxify, maybe from heavy metals. We do something once a month, or we'll do a detoxification from parasites, and we might do that every 6 months. So there's things that we do ritualistically that might kind of sound, a little old-fashioned or a little odd, but we still do the same thing. We might just call it something different, right? We just get on a rhythm, we get on a schedule of doing natural detoxification, which I think is really, really important. And in my life and the life that I've led for most of my adulthood, this is something that's been part of my regular routine, is doing things that detoxify. Now, this has also been known as the healer of the stomach and the gut. And I have a lot of experience with this, not just for myself, but with family members who've had problems with irritable bowel syndrome and Crohn's disease and inflammation and issues in the gut and the digestive system. So this is very, very well known. So amongst the most ancient and consistent uses, it was used to heal ulcers, gastritis, dysentery, and stomach fire is what they would call it. So indigestions, problems with the stomach. It would restore appetite and internal calm after a fever. So it brought some balance. And if you think about a fever, you think about what they considered fire. Inflammation is a huge problem in a lot of the issues that we have as humans. And it always has been that. And this is one of my favorite things that cat's claw does, is it goes after inflammation. It restores the appetite and eternal calm after a fever. It basically, the bitter compounds of the bark were believed to coat and strengthen the gut lining. And to me, that's something we might call a demulcifant or a tonic, okay? Now, it's also been used as wound medicine and postpartum recovery. Now, this is all things that I found in my research in all of the thousands of years that it's been used, okay? And then I have a modern list that it's known for and used for very, very strongly in today's medicine. So poultices of the inner bark or the vine shavings were applied to infected wounds, sores, snake bites, and burns. Women used wheat decoctions after childbirth to restore vitality, stop internal bleeding, and to help promote milk flow. Now, that being said, that is so well documented in the history and the research that I did. But in modern times, it's suggested that you don't use it during pregnancy, which that sounds right. And I would agree with that. And also not for nursing moms. So that is something that was used to promote milk flow back in ancient times, right? And if you go back 100, 150 years, when they were actually doing this before we had our great big fancy modern stuff, it's not really that ancient. So that's a really good way to think about it, right? Now, cat's claw was also known as the guardian against evil winds and curses. And these are the really fun things that I love to research, because I think it brings a depth of wisdom, a little bit of mysticism. But I think it's because as humans, as we walk through this planet, there's been such beautiful documentation of what these plants do and how they help get humans from the beginning of life to the end of life. And this wisdom is passed down generation after generation and thousands of years. It's not new, which this is part of what I really, really love about this. So many Amazonian plants, they double as spiritual protectors. And this is definitely true with cat's claw. Cat's claw is linked to the jaguar and was burned as incense or worn as an amulet against evil winds, witchcraft, and envy. So that's cool. Some of these things that come in that I find, I'm just like, this is really, really amazing, because we know that we are emotional beings. And think about when we are consumed with envy, until we realize that that's just a wasted emotion, this is something that is believed to help with that emotion. The healer might rub the tea on a patient's skin while chanting to hook out negative energies. Because if you were to think or see what a cat's claw plant looks like, this is a fast-growing vine, And it's got these little hooks on it that help it grab a hold. And that's how it got its name, is cat's claw. It looks like a little cat's claw, but it grows, and it in some places in the world, it's considered invasive. You know, I actually talked to someone who it grows in New Orleans. So it grows in places that are warm, humid. It doesn't like to get in temperatures that are lower than 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is a plant that can just go wild in the places where it thrives. So if you're a person who lives in Florida, places in Texas, places along the eastern southern coast of the United States, you might have this growing in places that you could maybe go harvest it, right? And learn how to do that sustainably. So this is also known as a joint and bone strengthener. And again, we're still talking about a little bit ancient times, as far as if you're going to go back like 150 years, and then way beyond that. So it was used for rheumatism, arthritis, and old age pains. The logic is this: the vine's ability to climb high and stay flexible symbolized supple strength. So they really look at what the plant is doing and how it grows, and they equate that to what the body needs as it ages, which is such a beautiful thing. The plant that lent mobility and resistance to the bones. I really love that. Now, it's also a powerful antimicrobial. And this is one of the things that I have, not just recently, but for a lot of years, this is one of the things I've used it for, because it's got antiviral and antibacterial properties. So a common treatment for malaria-like fevers and viral illnesses. So this is back in the ancient texts about that. The plant was said to cool the blood, reduce inflammation, and fight unseen invaders. Interpreted today as immune modulating and antimicrobial properties. Beautiful. Now here's something interesting. Fertility and love medicine, okay? Some tribes use cat's claw in low doses as a reproductive tonic to restore fertility or libido after an illness. Great. This, to me, is one of those plants that I would consider a panacea. A panacea because it covers so many things. In some lore, it was mixed with other jungle plants like maca, dragon's blood resin, and it was used as an aphrodisiac. Okay? Humans have always needed that at some time or another in their lives, right? This is how we keep the species going. And it's been figured out that there's some plants that help us do that. Really beautiful. So the part of the plant that you use is the inner bark, and it's what's known as the living skin of the vine, the most potent part. There are some beautiful ways that you can consume cat's claw. Now, I have 3 favorite ways: in tea form, in capsule form, and in tincture form. Now, the one I have used the most over the years is in tincture form. This is one that my dad made when like I said, I was in my 20s, and I was able to have access to it and learn about it and use it from when I was fairly young. So it's something I'm super familiar with. What I love about a tincture is that you can travel with it. You don't have to wait and boil it and make it into a decoction or a tea. It's very easy to use. And the nice thing about a tincture is it has a super long shelf life. Now, we do make a tincture of cat's claw that we call una de gato. And it's this beautiful reddish, amber, brownish. It's the most beautiful color. In fact, when I first started making a tincture of cat's claw myself, probably about 30 years ago, it's still one of my favorites to make for my own homemade stash because it is so rich. It's so beautiful. You can almost feel it vibrating with all of its health benefits just simply by the way that it looks and the color that it is. If you've never made your own tincture, this would be a really, really fun one to start with. And I'll put a link below to a couple of places where I get my cat's claw bark. And it's organic, it's sustainably harvested, and it's really, really fun to tincture. And you can use something as simple as like vodka. A lot of people who make their own homemade tinctures will use something like vodka to extract the properties out of the plant. Now, a tea is also super nice, and it tastes woodsy and rich and earthy. one of my absolute favorites. You can always add a little touch of honey or a little bit of lemon if you need to kind of get your taste buds used to it. But what I would say is try it without any sweetener or any of the acidity to help kind of cut that. Try it first and maybe make it not quite so strong. So I'm a person who loves a really strong tea. I'll let it sit and steep for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes sometimes. Sometimes I'll leave the tea bag in almost every single tea I drink. I'll leave it in the whole time that I'm drinking it. So play around with that a little bit if you decide to try it with the tea, because the tea is going to give you all the flavors. Now you can also get really good flavor from the tincture too. And I do like to add a little bit of water before I take the tincture, because it is super strong when it's an alcohol base without anything else added. And it can be a tiny bit strong when you just take it straight. So a little bit of water, swish it around in your mouth, because think about what is happening in your mouth. I like to do that with the cat's claw and with the lomatium. So the LDM 100, I will swish around in my teeth and gums because it's got such powerful antibacterial properties. And we all know that there's all kinds of bacteria that just naturally live in our mouth, right? So the roots are sometimes preferred for deep purification, more grounding energy. The leaves and the thorns are rarely used. Thorns were considered too sharp energetically for ingestion, but they would burn them at rituals. So this kind of reminds me of how important it is to use the entire plant if you're going to be using it. In fact, if you are able to find some cat's claw where you live, there is a special technique to harvesting it so that you don't mess up the root system, because you don't really use the roots. They're not used medicinally that much. But when you're using the inner bark, there is a way to absolutely get the inner bark, harvest it, and it won't disturb the growth of the plant, because this is a very fast growing vine. In fact, I've seen beautiful pictures of cat's claw growing in the Amazon rainforest, and it's just this huge canopy underneath another canopy of all the trees that are above it. It's a really, really, really beautiful plant. Growing and gathering, here's some traditional practices that they would do. Always taken with ceremony. Before cutting, the healers would ask the plant spirit permission. This is something that I continue to do, is I will always talk to my plants. Just the other day, I went out and harvested the rest of my parsley and the chives that were ready to harvest before the end of the season. And it's such an amazing thing to actually talk to the plants and get their permission before you harvest. Now, that might seem a little crazy to ask your parsley, hey, do you mind if I harvest you? But there is a connection and a relationship that when you have that, there's an energetic frequency that's exchanged. And it's a very simple thing to get in the habit of. So I do this when I pick a potato or a tomato off of my tomato vines. It's a really beautiful rhythm to get into when you're harvesting something that you grow or that you wildcraft for, and you're giving thanks and you're creating a relationship with the plant. Harvest done on waning moons believed to maximize the medicinal potency. So, we hear about, harvesting at the new moon, harvesting during the full moon, doing a parasite cleanse on the new moon. There is something to the rhythms of the earth and harvesting them in the proper seasons. Like some plants should be harvested when the morning dew burns off, and it should be harvested like at 11 or 12, or some when the sun is setting. Plants have these beautiful natural rhythms, and when you learn about them, so many things and puzzle pieces click into place the way that they help the human body stay well. One of my favorite things. When you're going to harvest sustainably, here's a tip. A small section of bark was removed per plant to avoid killing the vine. Sustainable, respectful harvesting long before modern ethics adopted the idea. So the people that have been using this plant and other plants for thousands of years always knew how to harvest sustainably, because they recognize that this is not something you're going to walk into a store and pick it up off a shelf. That's not how it worked. This works because you're going out, you're respecting the land, you're respecting the plant, you're respecting its seasons, the way that you continue to keep the plant growing. There's all these beautiful rhythms. there's a beautiful symbolism and energetic meaning to cat's claw. So it's also known as jaguar's claw. It means protection, strength, and courage to heal. Sometimes we do need courage to heal. I think we get diagnosed with something that's kind of gnarly, something that feels overwhelming. And, I can't think of too many people in our modern world who get diagnosed with something pretty hardcore, whatever that is. And it feels like a weight has just been dropped on your heart and on your soul and your spirit. And cat's claw is also known as jaguar's claw because it helps with protection, strength, and the courage to heal. The courage to know that our body knows how to heal. We are healing machines. So we know how to heal not only when we get the right tools, but when we get the right belief system. When we know that we are energetic beings. And in this frequency with this body, our consciousness wants to make our body happy. And if we say things like, I can't heal, I never get better, I'm always sick, I can't believe I got this, your body is trying to please you, your mind, your consciousness. There is a whole thing. Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches it. Greg Braden teaches it. Bruce Lipton. There are these teachers out there that many of us are familiar with that are teaching these things at the highest level because they're true. And all you have to do is really listen to the message and it will resonate deep within who you are. And this is the beautiful thing about where we are right now. There is a great remembering. It's not even just a great awakening. It is a great remembering. We are remembering our potential, our power, our connection to the divine. This is all where I believe that we are in the most beautiful time ever to be a human being watching this unfold. And not just that, we get to participate. And we just get to be in a place of awareness, a place of love, and be willing to be brave and courageous, right? These are two of my favorite words because I believe we want sovereignty, we want freedom, we want autonomy, we want love, we want safety, we want security. And the reason I bring all of this up right now is because I believe that we are in a time where we get to choose. We get to choose which path we walk on. And it might be a little rough if we choose the path where we opt out of all the systems or most of the systems, where we maybe step in and utilize what we need to in certain situations, because you can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. But I believe we are in these times right now. We're in the thick of it, right? So there's also the symbol of the climbing vine, which is our reconnection between earth, which is the body, and the sky, which is our spirit. Okay, so this is something that they believed back in ancient times about the climbing vine. Now the hooks are believed that this is the plant's ability to grip and remove illness. That's so perfect. I love that. Now the bitterness is a medicine that purges toxins, bitterness of life, and spiritual stagnation. Because this is an earthy, woodsy, a bit of a bitter plant. It's got a little bit of a bite to it. And I would suggest if you've never tried it, especially in tincture or tea form, you have to try it. It's brilliant. And like I said, make a little bit of a weaker decoction or tea so that it might be a little palatable. But if you're a person who loves to try new things and is adventurous, this is a fun one to do that with. Cat's claw medicine was not just chemical. It was ritual. It was part of the cleansing, fasting, chanting, and aligning with the forest's rhythm. So the rhythm of the forest. This was a really beautiful plant that allowed the people who utilized it and learned about it and studied it and indulged in it. This was a beautiful ritual. Now, here's some cool things about cat's claw that dives into the historical journey of between the history of cat's claw, the 2,000 years, and modern herbalism, which is new. So new. Modern herbalism, we want all the scientific studies, we want all the double-blind placebo, all the stuff. We want every alkaloid and every single, part of the plant broken down. And, this is a really interesting journey. And I found this and I thought it was going to be so fascinating to share it with you. So in the 1970s to the 1980s, so think how recent that is. That's about 40, 50 years. That's not very long ago. So Peruvian and European researchers, they began cataloging the phytochemistry of cat's claw, and they were confirming some of the immune-related activities. So they were confirming that. That was in the 70s and 80s. And then in the 1990s, it becomes a major export and the subject of global interest. So this is, I really look at this as something that I feel like my dad was way ahead of the curve, because I started using this in the 70s when I was a teenager. Now I used it really heavily starting in my 20s. So this was in the 80s. So this is where my level of gratitude for what this has been in my life for all these decades, this is where my sense of gratitude just flows, because I found this and I was like, okay, this is so amazing. So in the 1990s, it becomes a major export and the subject of global interest, and it was marketed as the Amazonian miracle vine. So you might not see that in today's marketing or people that are talking about it, because we're so closely censored on what we can say. But in the 1990s, when this really became a global interest and people were importing it, exporting it, it was marketed as the Amazonian miracle vine. Now today, it's still used ceremonially in Peru and in shamanic diets for spiritual purification, and they actually use this prior to ayahuasca ceremonies. So this is still used in ritualistic use in Peru prior to a ceremony like that, which I found really fascinating. So I'm going to end that piece there because I have a feeling this is going really longer than I thought. But I did want to give you a quick list of some of the modern uses that the cat's claw is known and used by not just herbalists, naturopaths, acupuncturists, chiropractors, all the indigenous people and shamans that still use this. But now people in the modern medical industry, because there's such a interest in herbs and herbal medicine, I believe, and from what I see in people that I contact with and that reach out to me, there's a lot of medical doctors who are starting to do their own research and looking at some of these things because their patients are coming in and saying, hey, I read about this. What do you think about this if I take this instead of this? So here's a list of things that it's being used for now in modern times. Joint and inflammation support. This is the biggest one for me. 3 years ago, I had a major knee surgery. I had a knee replacement, and I did 3 things that got me through the inflammation and pain. And the number one thing was cat's claw. Then I used turmeric and I used CBD. And I didn't have to go on any antibiotics, any anti-inflammatories, or any pain meds, because that completely did it. And if you think about something as major as a surgery, there's a lot of inflammation there as the body's healing. And this to me was a major game changer. So cat's claw may help reduce inflammation and ease joint discomfort, supporting flexibility and mobility. So I believe that this was something that really was pivotal for me when I was going through all of the rehab to get my flexibility back in that knee joint, right? And I have almost 100% where I was before I had the injury that led to me having that surgery. So there you go. Immune strength and recovery, known as an immune modulator. It helps the body maintain balance, strengthening defenses when needed, and calming them when they're overactive. Okay, so it's got a bit of some adaptogenic properties. Antioxidant protection, packed with plant alkaloids and phenols, cat's claw helps neutralize oxidative stress and supports cellular repair. Think anti-aging here. Anything that goes after free radicals, anything that has powerful antioxidant properties. And if you think about it, almost every plant I get on here and talk about has powerful antioxidant properties. That's one of the beautiful things about plants. They just contain almost everything we need. It's amazing. Digestive health. This is something I've definitely used this for because I have a sensitive digestive system, and I have for a while. And it forces me to pay really close attention to what I eat, what I drink, what I consume. And I always know when my stress levels are a little bit high is my digestion pays the price. So Cat's claw has been one of those things that have been just a gift, an absolute gift in my life. So traditionally used for gastritis, ulcers, and hot stomach, okay? It's often turned to today for soothing gut irritation and promoting digestive harmony. You know, really amazing. Detoxification and cleansing, antiviral and antimicrobial properties, cellular repair, and longevity. So what I actually did when I formulated last year, it's been almost 2 years now, I formulated a beautiful tincture called Pivot 8. And it's got cryptolepis, it's got chaparral, it does have cat's claw in it, it's got olive leaf, licorice root, lemon balm. It's this beautiful, beautiful, powerful antimicrobial blend. And I wanted to bring something out that people, when they find Barlow Herbal for the first time, they learn about something like lomation, which is what we're really known for. And then they learn about the rash, which happens to some people, a one-time detox rash. Some of you might have experienced it. It doesn't happen to the majority of people who take it, but it is a very intense detox that I believe is something very good for the body, but it is very, very intense. So for some people who want a powerful antiviral, antimicrobial, they don't feel comfortable taking something that has that potential. So almost 2 years ago, I formulated this beautiful blend that a lot of people have been using during cold and flu season. It's become one of my favorites as well. I'll kind of mix that in during cold and flu season. I'll do maybe the lomation on one day, and then I'll do the Pivot 8 on the other day. So the cat's claw is a very important antimicrobial herb that lives in our Pivot 8. So this is a lot of information. I love this plant. It's one of my staples. It's one of my favorites. And I would love to know what you think about all of this. And is it something that you are familiar with? Do you actually grow it? Are you able to grow it? Do you live in an environment where you can grow this plant? And it might be as easy as maybe identifying it, especially if you live somewhere where it's kind of a rainforest or it's tropical, it's humid, your temperature rarely gets lower than 60 degrees Fahrenheit. This might grow in the area where you live. And I would just say, learn about it. There's a great app, I'll put it below here, that will help you identify different plants. And I've been using this app for about 10 years. It's called PictureThis. And you simply take a picture of the plant you want to identify. And in the years that I've been using this app, it's never once misidentified a plant. And I know about a lot of plants because I was lucky to grow up the way I did, and I'm lucky that this stuff interests me to the core. And this is a really good way to identify. And then, of course, make sure that you know how to sustainably harvest it, use the right part of the plant, and etc. So thanks for tuning in today, guys. We live in such amazing times that it's really fun to share this kind of information. So thanks for tuning in, and we will see you in the next one.